Hello world, my name is Akca, and you are now watching my ShowCash presentation based on my secondary methods 1x for both test specializations in information and software technology and tech mandatory. During this ShowCash presentation, I will be reflecting upon my personal growth as a test teacher experienced this semester and also my future personal development plan. For me to achieve this, I will be demonstrating across teaching weeks 1 to 8 in the teacher learning portfolio and identifying challenges within a lifelong learning program. So let's begin. Weeks 1. What you are now seeing is my WordPress blog. During week 1, we went through the learning guide, addressing what was required of the course and its assessments. After that, we were required to download the syllabus from the Board of Studies, both Tech Mandatory and Information and Software Technology syllabus. In class, in groups of 2 during class, we were asked to complete the Getting to Know Your Syllabus activity for Information and Software Technology. Completing this activity allowed me to work in groups to get to know the fellow class peers and also allowed me to get to be familiar with the syllabus. We were then required to complete the same activity for Tech Mandatory. Having already completed the task in class became my scaffold for completing the task individually. By completing both the worksheets for each individual syllabus, I began to contrast the difference between the two as not much, except the very few critical components, such as the assessment-based learning for both the syllabus was structured out differently. The rationale, aim, and outcomes of both the syllabus was almost exactly the same. However, the objectives were slightly different, as information and software technology mentions in step 3 and 4 of already assumed knowledge and to build upon Tech Mandatory refers to the same context, but wording is differently with knowledge and understanding of research and skills. The other task that was required to complete was Why a Teacher. This was needed to be completed as opposed to a KWO chart completed during last semester in semester method, secondary method 2Y. Doing this task allowed me to better understand what I have to achieve so far and what is yet to be achieved. Week 2. During week 2, we looked at 3 theorists in education through the lecture slides. This helped me form some sort of idea on what we will be basing our education methods around in information and software technology. We were later asked to explore the Curriculum Support Technology homepage and use this as a guide in case the school would like us to design our own curriculum support for the school. We used Rutherford Technology High School Unit 4 to complete our set of tasks. Our task was to propose a big idea question for the unit. Our big idea unit title was My Website Rules. The big idea question was how do you promote a business on a website? We were then asked what are the unit outcomes, and we need to list the core questions focusing on the core areas. Then researching what the teaching resources will be needed to complete the unit. Once all that was achieved, we needed to make a unit overview of the big idea question. Unit title, My Website Rules. We suggested a length of 10 weeks in order to complete this focus area module, graphic design and communication. Next, using the unit questions, propose a set of learning tasks that will implement the unit you have downloaded the curriculum support. We began by outlining a project outline by proposing the syllabus outcomes a student needs to achieve. with the tasks individually that needs to be accomplished throughout. Later, we need to do a mini research project on the three theorists that we were introduced of Benjamin Bloom, Howard Gardner, and Edward D. Boner. Week 3! During week 3, we looked at constructing lesson plans. We learned to always use backward approach by starting with a big idea question for students to achieve throughout the term. Doing this will allow us as teachers to implement and prepare in the long run as a whole. Also allow each lesson to be linked together with what is expected to be taught and learned from the syllabus outcomes of each student. In relation to the lesson plan construction, we also built upon prior knowledge of what project-based learning, PBL, and how to implement it in our big ID projects, and also the lesson plans as a whole. By looking at some school examples, helped me learn how we as teachers use PBL in our everyday practice in teaching lessons. We constructed a lesson plan draftly of a 10 ISD classroom. The lesson was based on project storyboard prototypes of how to promote a business on a website as opposed to a big idea question. The lesson plan outlines the opening, the body, and closure of the lesson, then moves on to a follow-up and reflections on the lesson plan. This lesson plan was a draft to begin with. During week 4, we looked at building student understanding within the lessons. Within the lecture part of the lesson, we looked at some sample tasks that were presented on the Board of Studies activities page. By looking at a variety of sample tasks of not only computing task specialization, but other task specializations, helped me gain knowledge to construct lesson plans into one assessment task by using backward mapping. During week 4 activity, we had to refine and update the lesson plan started in week 3. The lesson plan we started in week 3 was storyboard prototypes. We implemented the lesson plan thoroughly of opening, body, and closure of the lesson so that another teacher could pick up the lesson plan and deliver the lesson exactly how it is. Lastly, we built on the lesson aspects of why good website practice is needed. Storyboard designs and YouTube is used in lessons as research support for these aspects. Week 5. During week 5, we continued looking at building student understanding, but focused more on teaching strategies, and safety within the TAS specialization classroom. Within the lecture part of the lesson, we looked at Howard Gardner's Guide to Multiple Intelligence theory on teaching strategies to build student understanding. The other half of the lesson, we looked at learning environment on the way a task, activity, process is delivered depends on the individuals in the learning environment. Within the class, we completed a Let's Get Safe activity, which was a role play about safe work practices in a technology and applied studies environment. This activity allowed us to learn in a fun and interactive way by taking on board a hands-on action which students could enjoy and learn at the same time. Week 6. During week 6, we looked at creative teaching and learning. We began by introducing what quality teaching is and how to go about achieving this throughout our teaching lives. We discussed within the lecture part of the lesson that only through lead management can only teachers create classrooms in which all students not only do competent work but begin to do quality work. Research has shown that quality teaching improves the academic outcomes of all students. In groups of 2 within our test specializations, we discussed possible teaching and learning strategies that could be used for our project and may have been observed on focus day visits. The focus day observation teaching strategies that we came up with are role plays, group work, class discussions, case studies and presentations. Week 7. During week 7, we looked closely at creating a design brief within our task specializations. It was a little more challenging due to being an online week. The online lecture PowerPoint explained and provided examples of what a design brief is and how to successfully adapt it as a teaching strategy towards a more term planning, a big picture planning, rather than planning lesson plans for each individual lesson. We were asked to create a design brief student resource document. The task syllabus design brief was accomplished with the use of the history of the internet by getting students to design a website of the history of the website of the internet. The design specifications outlined the individual tasks and the group tasks that needed to be completed, and also the resources that was needed to achieve the task. Later, we were asked to design a student support document as a lesson part 1. The student document outlined the history of the internet, a web design. As part of the syllabus, students need to know the history of the internet and various other resources of the internet. And having students design a website for option topic 5 in the syllabus, information and software technology, allows students to achieve this goal. This task specifically asks, firstly, to get students to design a storyboard, as an example provided. Later, the design brief support required an ICT use of testing the students' knowledge. In order to complete this, I've used PowerPoint. By getting the idea of a famous TV show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I test the students' prior knowledge of what they've learned. Through them, I ask them questions using the PowerPoint structure. Using various question structures, I do the same thing that what the TV show does as well. This way, the students are engaged and interactive with what they learn, and it gets them engaged in the lessons. Lastly, we had to use the week-by-week scope and sequence document to structure the delivery of our project-based unit of work. By doing this, we assume the prior knowledge that the students need to achieve, the prerequisite skills that students need to have, and the materials and resources that was required in order to complete the unit title, History of the Net Web Design activity. That is all, folks. My name is Akca. Thank you for watching my ShowCash presentation.